Ever found blue mould on the bread, or a squidgy satsuma lurking in the bottom of the net? Is this type of thing happening more often? Research from the Consumer Council, with over 1,000 shoppers in Northern Ireland, found over half of us had noticed issues with shorter use-by dates and food not lasting as long as we'd normally expect. We went out and about in Belfast to see if consumers there had noticed any issues and to get their thoughts on why it was happening.
Pan loaf, just one of these. It was like an accordion, it was fresh. But see, went and opened it, blue mould, and I've only bought it a few days.
My weekly supermarket delivery, the fresh fruit isn't quite as fresh as I would like. So 9 times out of 10 I get a notification to say my raspberries are going to be short of life. And even if they come with a day or two, I still find that you'll get a mushy one or you'll start to see the start of the little white fluff appearing. And I've also noticed that on other fresh fruit, such as my strawberries. I've had a watermelon as well turn up, which is a bit gooey inside, which is quite disappointing, given that I try to limit the number of shops I do during the week. I've recently moved to Northern Ireland and I have noticed a difference from my shop when I was in Yorkshire. We seem to have a lot more life on the fruit, and it certainly didn't go. I didn't notice I was having to buy top-up fruit during the week, but no, that's my working theory, is perhaps it is Brexit related.
Mostly not, but lately carrots, they go slimy and go horrible in a very short time. That's been my only problem. It's not storage, because I'm old enough to predate sell-by and use-by dates. It may be the packaging, because if they come in plastic, and if I take them out, they last a little longer.
Yes, definitely, especially with the meat, what I experience, what we get around. Not at the butcher shop, but at the supermarkets. So that's what I have experienced, which is even if the date is for tomorrow or day after tomorrow, but it is gone. So I always have a bad experience with the meat.
So it is annoying. Obviously, there's the expense side of it with everything going up in price. But what I'm finding is I'm making more trips to the supermarket.
You have the cheaper alternatives. If you're getting the cheaper ones, they do, you're buying them and they look fine and they're going to last maybe a week. By the time you go and take them maybe in 2 days' time, they're completely off. Maybe at the minute things are sort of out of season, or maybe I think it's the time when they arrive in the supermarket, they're maybe sitting around a bit longer than let on and they're not being stored properly.
To get a better idea about what's going on, the Consumer Council asked a research team at Ulster University to investigate, and they spoke to growers, wholesalers, logistics companies and food retailers to explore the supply chain challenges affecting the quality and freshness of our food. The research has pointed towards issues connected to the United Kingdom's departure from the European Union. Introduction of the Windsor Framework was intended to simplify the movement of goods, including food, between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But it appears the new arrangements are causing some delays, and this is one factor leading to issues with shorter shelf life. However, the research found wider issues also at play. Global conflicts and civil unrest have led to delays for food reaching our shelves. Attacks on ships in the Red Sea means some companies are using a much longer route around Africa's Cape of Good Hope. Another example is the French farmers' roadblocks in 2024, which led to rerouting of food deliveries. Climate change is another inescapable factor affecting shelf life. Just under a third of Northern Ireland's fresh food imports come from countries vulnerable to climate change. Even locally, unpredictable weather conditions are affecting the quality of key crops. How food is transported, the temperature shocks it is exposed to, and the amount of manual handling that happens in the journey will all impact freshness. Not just for long-haul produce such as bananas, there can be multiple stages in the journey for locally produced food too. Increased energy and fuel costs are another factor, particularly for those with high refrigeration costs. This has caused some companies to reroute produce, buy in larger bulk, or source more locally. Each of these solutions can have a negative impact on shelf life. These are just some of the factors identified in the research, but what can be done to tackle them? Here's Professor Ronan McIver at Ulster University to tell us about some of the innovations they looked at in their research.
I'm Ronan McIver. I'm a professor in Ulster University. I've been involved in the research on short shelf life in the supply chain. Digital technologies are playing an increasingly prominent role in this area through providing tracking and monitoring capabilities right across the supply chain. So firms are using artificial intelligence in this area. One area is to try and predict the shelf life of produce to within an accuracy of 1 day. These firms are using smart-enabled cameras and also mobile tracking devices. In farming and production, weather prediction technologies are being used to optimize harvest times and reduce spoilage. So if we consider fruit, there are some technologies that put a protective coating around fruit to reduce spoilage. Digital technologies are playing a really prominent role in this area. For example, large logistics companies are using digital technologies to monitor remotely shipping containers. So this allows them to monitor and control temperature and humidity in containers. There's significant investment by companies in climate control transportation units. Another area is dedicated storage spaces. Firms are separating ethylene producing produce such as bananas and tomatoes from ethylene sensitive produce such as apples and berries in order to prevent cross-contamination. There are a number of practices in relation to quality management in the supply chain to increase the shelf life of produce. Some firms are training their food handlers in handling delicate produce in order to prevent cross-contamination. Quality control inspections are also being used to remove bruised or damaged produce. The research has highlighted the challenges of managing short shelf life in the supply chain, but critically it's highlighted the opportunities around improvement in terms of innovations in digital technologies and packaging technologies that can enhance the overall quality in the supply chain.
It's encouraging to hear about innovations within the food industry, but are there actions we as consumers can take? The Consumer Council found over half of Northern Ireland consumers believed they would throw out less food if they knew how to store it properly. Here are our top 5 tips to help make your food and money last longer. Tip 1. Do a food stock take. Check what's in the fridge and cupboards before doing your next food shop. Some people use lists or apps, and others have a shelf in the fridge for must-eat now items. This not only saves money, it also helps save the planet. In the UK, 18 million tonnes of greenhouse gas emissions come from household food waste. Tip 2. Get inspecting. It's not only important to check the date and appearance of food when you're in store or getting a home delivery. Take time to inspect the food before you pack it away. If you see something going off, remove it now before it spoils the rest. Tip 3. Think location. How and where you store food will affect its shelf life. For example, potatoes are best taken out of the original packaging and stored in a bag that allows airflow before being put in a cool, dark place. However, some produce, like fresh berries, are best kept in the original packets they arrive in, as the holes in the punnets mean moisture won't be trapped. Apples and citrus fruit can last an extra 5 days kept in the fridge, but bananas are happiest kept at room temperature. Tip 4. Be cool. Most fridges in the UK are set too warm at 7 degrees Celsius, but should actually be between 3 to 5 degrees. Love Food, Hate Waste have a handy guide on their website for changing the temperature on every make and model of fridge. Tip 5. Freeze time. Lastly, if food is nearing its use-by date, you can hit the pause button by putting it in the freezer. If vegetables are on the turn, they can be chopped up and frozen ready to defrost for a quick sauce, chilli or curry. Food can be frozen right up to the use-by date. And if you split things like chicken fillets and sliced bread into portions, this makes it easier to defrost and use only what you need. You'll be surprised what you can freeze. For more advice, check out the BBC Good Food website. It seems likely issues with shorter shelf life will remain, but as we've heard, there are innovations to overcome some of them, And there are also things we can do that will reduce the amount of food going to waste before it's had a chance to be eaten. Find the full report online.